Hey guys, tonight we journey to the chilly fjords of early medieval Scandinavia, where the wind bites at your cheeks and the sea smells faintly of salt pine resin and wet wool. You're a Viking. Yes, you. And as you blink awake inside your thatched longhouse, you hear it. A rooster. It's the rhythmic slosh of oars dipping into water. Outside, the clan's longship is already being prepped. Today is a raiding day, but don't worry. You're not expected to leap out of bed, grab your axe and start swinging. No. First things first, hygiene. You might be a seafaring warrior with a reputation for pillaging, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. You've got a full cleansing ritual to get through, because you probably won't survive this if you skip it showing up dirty to a raid social disaster. You might be covered in someone else's blood by nightfall, but by Odin, you better start the day spotless. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. Drop it in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shift the furs aside and step onto the cold wooden floor. The longhouse breathes around you, smoky, warm, and scented faintly of cedar and roasted barley. It's not exactly a spa, but it's not a battlefield either. Yet, you stretch, scratch your scalp, and shuffle past the sleeping forms of cousins and warriors. Outside the fjord, mist curls like a cat along the hillside. Today your clan sets sail. The chieftain says you'll strike a small monastery across the channel. But before the glory, there's the grind. Hygiene. Unlike what people might expect of barbarians, the Norse cared deeply about cleanliness. Archaeological digs across Sweden and Denmark have turned up hundreds of personal grooming tools. Tweezers, razors, ear spoons. Yes, literal, tiny spoons for ears. You're not just some unwashed brute. You're a warrior poet with a skincare routine. You walk down to the stream, the one that cuts through your village like a vein. Mist hangs low, and you feel the slap of cold air against your cheeks. The water is glacial, pure, fast, and breathtakingly cold. There's a flat rock smoothed by generations of feet, a well-worn spot where your clan comes to wash, reflect, and sometimes complain about in-laws. As you kneel by the bank and splash the first icy handful onto your face, it hits you like a punch, instant alertness. You gasp, not from pain, but the thrill of it. A nearby elder chuckles. "Good morning, warrior." He rasps, teeth mostly missing, but eyes bright. Eyes. "Cold enough to wake the gods, eh?" You grin, snot streaming artistically down your nose. This morning wash isn't ceremonial, it's expected. Vikings didn't bathe every day, but they did wash face, hands, and hair with remarkable regularity. Most homes had some kind of water access nearby. And even when on campaign, warriors carried small containers for water storage. You don't have a shower, but you do have a scoop and enough stoicism to pretend the water isn't liquefied pain. You rub ash soap across your arms, chest, and behind the ears. It's made from birch bark and animal fat, and it smells earthy like smoldering wood and lard. Birch wasn't just chosen for its abundance. It contains betulin, a compound with mild antiseptic properties. So yes, your soap also fights germs. Historians still argue whether birch soap had any spiritual significance or was just the Viking version of Old Spice. You dunk your head and slick your hair back, then sit upright. Droplets rolling down your neck, trickling under the wool collar. You exhale sharp and slow. Nearby, another warrior hums to himself, scrubbing his armpits with a confidence that borders on theatrical. Then there's the beard. Even if yours is patchy, you must keep it combed and oiled. No one fears a man with a tangled beard and crumbs in his mustache. Appearance matters especially before battle. You wouldn't wear a blood-stained tunic to dinner with the gods. Why would you raid a village looking like a swamp troll? Cleanliness, you're taught, is part of honor. You wipe your face with a cloth rinsed in stream water and gaze at your reflection. The war paint can come later. For now, you are just a man with goosebumps and chattering teeth doing his due diligence before swinging an axe. The clan slowly gathers near the water, each warrior taking a turn. No one rushes. There's something sacred in the silence, the rhythm of this shared routine. And there's always one guy today. It's Orm, who pretends he's washing, but is clearly just splashing around and hoping no one notices he skipped his feet again. You make a mental note to sit far from him on the ship. The chieftain arrives last, his presence commanding. He doesn't speak. Just kneels and washes in silence, eyes closed, lips moving. Perhaps a prayer to Thor. Perhaps just asking not to slip on the mossy rock again. You rise, dry your hands on your tunic, and stretch once more. The sun has begun to crest the fjord walls, casting a pale gold glow across the water. It's time to eat, pack your gear, and prepare for sail. But for now, you're clean. You're present. You're exactly where you should be. No fanfare. Just one clean warrior, standing in the mist, ready for whatever comes next. The stream is behind you now, but the cold water lingers in your bones as you return to the longhouse. Your fingers tingle from the chill, and your nose is still dribbling defiantly. Welcome to Viking Hygiene Step 1. Survive the wash without losing a toe to frostbite. Step 2. Soap up. But not just any soap. By the hearth, a swipe-worn wooden bowl holds the clan's precious batch of birch ash soap, the kind that took weeks to make. You pick it up reverently, breathing in that earthy, sharp scent again, charcoal, fat, and tree bark. It's not exactly lavender and lemon verbena, but in your world, this is luxury. It's made by slowly boiling animal fat with lye derived from birchwood ash. The end product is dense and crumbly, but foams up when rubbed into damp skin. It also stings like a tiny insult when it gets in your eyes. You work a bit of it into your hands. It leaves a faint grayish residue that smells of campfires and something vaguely metallic. The soap serves more than one purpose. It strips dirt. It discourages lice, and when times get desperate, it can even double as deodorant. Vikings didn't have a word for fresh, but they knew when someone wasn't. The chilly wind outside doesn't stop several villagers from scrubbing their arms and legs with it by the fire. You join them kneeling on a pelt. A younger boy nearby is learning how to lather for the first time. His older sister coaches him patiently. Not behind the ears again. Bjorn. Behind the other ears, too. You smile and turn your attention to your own skin. Calluses, bruises, the occasional mystery scratch, you scrub them all. A cleaner warrior is a healthier one. Archaeological digs confirm this Viking remains often show better dental and skeletal health than their more civilized European neighbors. While monks in medieval England might bathe once a month, maybe Vikings washed far more regularly. It wasn't just vanity. It was survival. Historians still argue whether Vikings adopted their cleanliness out of spiritual reverence or sheer pragmatism. Maybe it was both. After all, when you spend your days sailing through salt water, mucking around in animal pens, and occasionally disemboweling your enemies, a regular rinse is probably less about purity and more about not being mistaken for a compost heap. The soap finishes its job. You rinse the residue off using a small ladle of warm water someone's been heating over the fire. The steam fogs your vision, and for a moment, the longhouse feels like a sauna, a good preview of tonight's communal sweat session. You dry off and pull on your inner tunic. It's a thin layer linen, if you're lucky, woven by your cousin who pretends she's terrible at spinning, so people stop asking her for favors. The tunic smells faintly of herbs, dill maybe, or the grass it was dried on. Even clothes here have a cleansing ritual. You settle into your spot near the hearth and take a moment to oil your skin with a mixture of tallow and juniper. Not everyone bothers with this step, but you've always liked the way it keeps your elbows from cracking in the wind. Plus, it makes you smell a bit like smoked forest, which among Vikings is practically a compliment. Someone behind you sneezes violently, and someone else mutters, "Should have bathed longer." There's a thin line between gentle teasing and clan hierarchy, and cleanliness actually plays a part in it. If you stink, people will talk, and not the flattering kind. Then there's the ritual of scent masking, an often overlooked part of Viking hygiene. Today it's a satchel of dried angelica root and crushed pine needles. You tie the pouch to your belt, inhaling the sharp aroma. It keeps fleas away, or so the elders claim. It also might keep some humans away too, if you overdo it. Which you've done. Twice. A warrior nearby offers you a few extra slivers of soap for the road. Keep it dry, he says, or it'll turn into porridge. You nod solemnly. Soap porridge is no joke. It smells worse than your uncle's feet after a sea voyage, and doesn't wash anything except your will to live. You rise and begin rolling your few possessions into a cloth bundle: soap, a small comb, a strip of beeswax for waterproofing, and a tiny whetstone. Not everything is about looking good. Some things are just about staying alive. But isn't that the same thing, really? At the door you pause. Outside, the fjord sparkles under the climbing sun. The longship is being loaded with supplies. Food, weapons. A carved wooden figure of Thor. For luck. You see the crew gathering. The clean ones, at least. You're among them. You take one last look back at the fire. The bowl of soap now half used the boy. Bjorn still arguing about which ear is which. You shake your head, amused. This is what it means to prepare not just armor and swords, but skin and scent. After all, when you board that ship and begin the long row toward unfamiliar shores, you'll be surrounded by your brothers in arms. You'll be shoulder to shoulder, knee to knee, elbow to sweaty elbow. It's not just about appearances. It's about endurance. And no one wants to endure next to someone who skipped the soap. Outside, the air carries that unmistakable Viking morning chill, equal parts salt and mischief. You step toward the shipyard with your belongings bundled over one shoulder. But before you can get far, someone waves you over. It's Carrie, the clan's self-appointed grooming expert. She's squatting beside a crate filled with personal care tools that to the untrained eye might resemble a box of medieval dental torture devices. To you, however, it's a treasure trove. You take a seat on an overturned barrel. Carrie doesn't say much. She just grunts and hands you a small bone comb. You begin working it through your damp hair, catching knots with the quiet tenacity of someone who's done this more often than they've swung an axe. Viking combs were carved from antler or bone with teeth so fine they could remove dirt tangles and ideally lice. Emphasis on ideally. You wince as a knot pulls. Kari smirks. If your hair screams, it means it's still alive, she says. That's reassuring. Sort of. Beard next. You pull out your own personal grooming kit, which hangs neatly from your belt. A pouch with tiny tools inside, tweezers, an ear spoon, and your prized possession, a finely carved beard comb. You keep your beard neat, partly out of pride and partly because elders say Thor despises unkempt whiskers. Whether or not that's canon is up for debate, but why risk it? You comb slowly, methodically, teasing the strands into place, removing a crumb or two from last night's bread. You consider braiding it. Some warriors braid the beard into 3 tight cords, sometimes wrapping them with bronze wire for battle. It's part function, part fashion. After all, you don't want your facial hair getting caught in your own armor. That's one way to lose a fight and your dignity. A friend joins you cursing the cold. You ever try braiding while rowing, he mutters, pulling out his own grooming kit. Nearly took my eye out. You nod sympathetically. Grooming might be gentle, but it is not without risk. Modern imaginations often portray Vikings as scruffy brutes, mud-caked bearded hurricanes of testosterone. But reality leans gentler. Clean, well-kempt appearances were important. So important, in fact, that many warriors were buried with grooming tools. Archaeologists have found them in graves from Sweden to Iceland, proof that vanity, or at least personal maintenance, doesn't die with you. Historians still argue whether these tools were everyday items or ceremonial artifacts. Were they meant for the afterlife? Or were they simply on hand because no one wanted to show up to Valhalla looking like they'd lost a fight with a pine cone? You finish braiding your beard and secure it with a simple iron ring. Your reflection stares back from a polished bronze shard tied to Carrie's kit, slightly warped, but good enough. You nod to yourself. Acceptable. Dignified. Slightly terrifying. Perfect. Next up, fingernails. You inspect yours, then grab the small iron pick Kari hands you. Underneath the grime of campfire soot and oat crumbs, there's, well, not much better, but at least now it's visible. Vikings believed in keeping their nails clean, not just for hygiene, but as a subtle way of showing personal discipline. Dirty nails weren't just gross, they were dishonorable. You clean under each one carefully, pausing now and then as someone passes by to greet you, or yell about a misplaced axe. Beside you, another warrior trims his nose hairs with a knife, muttering Norse curses under his breath. You decide not to watch too closely. The grooming kit passes hands down the row of seated warriors, each person taking their turn. There's a comforting rhythm to it, scrape comb, pluck curse. You'd be surprised how social these quiet morning routines are. It's a time for gossip jokes, the occasional insult disguised as a compliment. Someone behind you declares, "At least now your beard looks like it grew on purpose." There's even a whisper that the chieftain uses imported grooming oil, from the Franks no less. Scandalous. He claims it keeps the beard soft and manageable. You can't help but be curious, and maybe a little jealous. A child trots by holding a wooden toy shaped like a comb. Clearly, the obsession starts young. His mother gently scolds him for trying to use it on the dog. The dog looks relieved. Even in this pre-battle moment, the atmosphere is oddly domestic. You don't feel the looming tension of war. Not yet. Instead, you're surrounded by warriors doing their best not to show up looking like swamp creatures. It's a different kind of preparation, a quiet rebellion against the dirt and chaos that's coming. Today you'll fight, yes, but today you'll also look like someone worth remembering. You wipe your tools clean and tuck them back into your belt pouch. The beard looks sharp. Your hair falls in neat lines. Your fingernails miraculously are no longer tiny soil samples. You smell vaguely of birch and smoke. There's a soft satisfaction in this ritual, one that makes the chaos ahead feel a little more manageable. The ship beckons its carved dragon head, watching from afar. But for now, you sit for just a moment longer, letting the wind tousle your freshly combed hair. Clean combed, braided, and just a little smug, the longhouse looms behind you. Now, its thatched roof glistening with dew, and you make your way down the packed earth path toward the heart of the village. It's still early, and the sun is only beginning to melt the morning mist. Across the clearing, smoke curls from the steam house chimney, a sign that the bath is nearly ready. You smile faintly. It's not just about being clean. It's about the ritual. Vikings had a curious relationship with steam baths. While not quite Roman in scale or drama, their bath culture was nevertheless consistent, structured, and deeply social. The bathhouse, often a small log structure lined with heated stones and buckets of water, became the place where warriors softened their calluses, swapped stories, and did their best to outsweat yesterday's mistakes. You duck inside the structure, instantly met with a cloud of thick, damp heat. It smells like pine sap, wet wool, and ambition. Naked bodies glisten in the rising steam. You nod to the others and find a seat on one of the wooden benches that circle the fire pit. A pair of younger warriors are already pouring water over the stones, hissing them into loud, fragrant bursts. One of them tosses in a bundle of dried herbs, yarrow maybe, or juniper for that sharp forest scent. You close your eyes and breathe in. There is something ancient in this. A closeness not just to the others, but to yourself. Here, everything slows. Sweat trickles down your spine. Your muscles begin to ease. There's even a bit of laughter as one poor soul tries to sit down too fast and nearly scorches his backside. Bathhouses were more than just hygienic spaces. They were social theaters. You shared advice, argued about fishing rights, recited poetry, and occasionally negotiated marriages. Though in this heat, your brain might be too boiled for anything beyond small talk. You reach for a birch whisk, a bundle of leafy branches, tied together, and begin lightly slapping your arms and legs. It improves circulation, they say. More importantly, it helps loosen dead skin and makes you look marginally more heroic. If not heroic, then at least less crusty. You glance over at another elder who's been sitting in the corner with a serious expression and a surprisingly pristine beard. Did I ever tell you about the time I fought off 2 raiders using only a ladle and a soap dish? He begins. You know where this is going. You nod and let him tell it again anyway. Historians still argue whether Viking bathhouses were reserved for the elite or open to all. Some evidence points to regular communal usage, while other records suggest some families had private steam rooms. What's clear, though, is that bathhouses were central enough to merit entire days built around them. In fact, the Norse word laugardagur, Saturday, literally translates to bath day. Imagine being so committed to hygiene that you name a whole weekday after it. That commitment isn't just visible in your village, it's audible. The bathhouse is alive with the sound of sloshing water, groaning benches, and the occasional argument over who's used up all the hot rocks. Someone pours more water, and the steam blooms like a spirit through the rafters. You find yourself lost in thought, staring at the patterns it makes. Tomorrow, your skin will be burned by sun and salted by sea. But today, it glows, damp pink, alive. At some point, the chieftain enters. The room subtly shifts. Conversations soften. You don't stand, no one does, but there's a ripple of awareness. He's older than most, but he sweats like a young man with the stern patience of someone who's bathed before many battles and lived to bathe again. He speaks softly, perhaps, to no one in particular. Clean body, clear mind. A dirty man fights with anger. A clean one fights with purpose. You're not sure if it's wisdom or just something he says to make people stop complaining, but it works. The steam settles. The room breathes as one. You take another birch whisk and offer it to the man beside you. He nods in thanks and begins rhythmically tapping it against his shoulders. A hush falls for a while. It's the best kind of silence, the kind shared by people doing something ancient together. Eventually you rise. The sweat clings to you like a second skin. You ladle warm water over your arms, rinsing off the herbal residue. The floor is wet beneath your feet. the wood darkened from generations of feet like yours. You towel yourself with a cloth woven from homespun wool, scratchy but functional. Outside, the air hits you like a surprise. It's crisp biting. Your skin steams in the cold. You inhale deeply. It feels right. As if you've been reset. You pull on your tunic again, this time softer from the heat. Your skin tingles. Your shoulders are loose and your head feels clearer. There's a battle coming, but not now. Now there is only the slow, satisfying ache of being thoroughly washed inside and out. As you make your way back toward the ship, someone jokes behind you. You smell too nice to raid anyone. You don't reply. You just smile. Because in a world where survival is often messy, smelly, and soaked in mud, choosing to be clean might just be the quietest form of defiance. You make your way back through the village, your steps lighter now that the steam has worked its magic. Your joints feel less like rusty hinges and more like, well, still rusty, but slightly oiled. The longship waits at the shore, but you've got one more ritual before setting sail. You crouch near a wooden bench by the hearth and pull out your last tool of the morning, a goose feather. Yes, you heard right. Goose feather. You slide it gently between your teeth, teasing out the debris from last night's oatcakes and dried fish. Viking dental hygiene was no joke. Goose quills, wooden toothpicks, even pieces of bone were used to dislodge stubborn morsels. And if you were really fancy or unlucky enough to have sore gums, you might even rub charcoal on your teeth to freshen your breath and kill bacteria. It's not minty. It's not fun. But it works. The feather's tip bends slightly and you adjust your grip. No mirrors, no dental floss, just steady hands and practiced angles. You've seen older warriors with all their teeth still intact and impressive feet in an age of axes and ale. Clean teeth weren't just about health. They were a mark of discipline, of pride. You spit quietly into the fire, watching the feather's soot-black tip sizzle away. Carrie appears behind you, tossing you a small cloth pouch. Charcoal and salt, she says. Rub it in with your finger, or your knife handle. Just don't use mine again. You nod, dipping a finger into the gritty mixture and massaging it gently over your gums. It tastes like burnt bitterness and sea air, but it leaves your mouth feeling strangely refreshed. Not clean like spearmint, but clean like a new slate. Beside you, another warrior is aggressively flossing with a thin sliver of sinew. His face is contorted in concentration, lips pulled back like a wolf mid-sneeze. He glances over, shrugs, and says, "Better this than rotting your jaw off at sea." Fair point. Viking graves have surprised archaeologists with how many skulls show minimal dental decay, especially compared to their medieval neighbors. Historians still argue whether this was thanks to their hygiene habits, their grain-light diet, or sheer luck. What's agreed upon is that Norsemen didn't walk around with black stumps for teeth, no matter what fantasy shows might have you believe. Nearby, one of the elders lifts a boiled root from a pot and begins chewing thoughtfully. It's a piece of angelica believed to strengthen gums and keep breath from getting too offensive. Keeps your kisses less murderous, he says, deadpan as you politely decline his offer to share. You finish your charcoal rub and rinse with a sip of mead, the good kind, not the sour dregs your cousin brews in secret. The alcohol stings a little, but that just means it's working right. You swish it and spit discreetly behind a log. One of the boys pretends to gag, and you flip him a feather. Your turn, you say. You sit quietly for a moment after letting your breath slow, tongue scraping your teeth out of habit. You wonder what your enemies would think if they knew you spent your morning flossing. Probably not the terrifying image they were expecting. But hygiene, you realize, is part of the game. A clean warrior lives longer and smells better in close combat. A shadow falls across you. The chieftain again. He gestures to your pouch. Still using charcoal. You nod. Good. My grandfather swore by birch bark ash. Said it made his smile so bright Thor himself flinched. He walks on, not bothering to see if you laughed. You do eventually. Quietly. Then there's the matter of breath. A small sprig of mint. Yes, it grew in Viking gardens, is passed around. You chew it slowly. It cuts through the salt and soot like spring air after a thunderstorm. Just a whisper of green in your mouth. It's not magic, but it's close. Even without mirrors, you know your teeth are presentable. You run your tongue along the edges, feeling no sharp grain, no sour sting. That's success. In a few hours, your mouth might taste like blood and adrenaline. But for now, charcoal mint and a hint of mead. And just when you think you're done, someone drops a challenge. Let's see whose teeth are cleaner. A mock inspection begins. Warriors grin, open-wide laugh, and fake horror. You call that clean one cries. Looks like you chewed on a corpse. The jokes spiral into chaos. Someone tries to floss with a bowstring, and you laugh until your stomach aches. In this moment, you are not just a raider or a warrior. You are part of a community where hygiene isn't about luxury. It's about respect for yourself, for your clan, for your enemies, oddly enough. Because nothing says fear me quite like a gleaming smile before you sack a village. You gather your things again, comb charcoal pouch, and now a slightly frayed goose feather. It'll make a fine bookmark if you ever write a saga. The day my beard was straighter than my sword. And with that you rise, your mouth clean, your mind steady. Ready for battle not just with your axe, but with breath that doesn't kill, and a smile that just might. The sky above the fjord stretches pale and endless. The kind of soft northern light that makes everything feel like it's happening in a dream. You squint at the reflection on the water, then glance around at your clanmates who are starting to gather for the next important part of the day. Lolgar Dagger. Bath Day. It's not a suggestion. It's a way of life. Lolgar Dagger Washing Day is so deeply rooted in your culture that it gave its name to Saturday itself. Imagine being so committed to cleaning that your entire calendar bends around it. No matter what else happens. Bad harvest, drunk cousin invading Danes, you wash on Lolgar Dagger. It's non-negotiable. And if you skip it, people will notice. And worse, they'll talk. You make your way toward the wash area again, this time not just for a quick scrub, but for the weekly cleanse. There's a different energy to it. Not frantic, not militant, just sacred. A shared understanding that no matter how wild the week has been, how many fish guts you've handled, how many pigs you've chased barefoot through mud, this moment is for renewal. Already, steam rises from freshly boiled water in giant cauldrons. Women stir the pots with long wooden paddles, adding handfuls of herbs. Marjoram thyme, maybe even some imported stuff if someone's traded well this month. The aroma is floral peppery and surprisingly calming for a people known mostly for setting things on fire. You strip down and ease into one of the wooden tubs. It's warm, blissfully so, and your body nearly groans from the contrast with the morning chill. Around you, warriors slide in with exaggerated sighs, like bears lowering themselves into spring-fed pools. Someone starts humming a tune, low, rhythmic, and slightly off-key. Another joins. It turns into a soft chant, wordless but comforting, like the sound of oars on still water. You lean back, close your eyes, and let the heat sink into your bones. This isn't just about grime. It's about identity. You are Viking, yes, but you are also human. And humans, when given the chance, crave the feeling of being clean, of peeling off the weak like an old tunic. A young boy nearby is being scrubbed down by his grandmother with something that looks suspiciously like a hedgehog. It's a brush, she insists, as he wails like he's being exercised. You smile to yourself, remembering when you were the one screaming about soap in your eyes. Across the way, two women debate the best way to get goat stink out of wool. Salt and ash, one says. No, the other replies. You roll it in snow and pray to Freya. You don't intervene. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Historians still argue whether this devotion to bathing came from cultural pride, practical necessity, or Norse beliefs about bodily purity. One thing is clear. The people of the North were among the cleanest of their time. While their southern counterparts might have avoided water for fear of disease, Vikings embraced it, even celebrated it. You reach for a wooden ladle, pour water over your head, and feel it sluice down your scalp, your back, your arms. Gone are the traces of soot, sweat, and yesterday's fish stew. You grab a cloth and begin scrubbing gently at first, then with purpose. Elbows, knees, behind the ears. You're not leaving any battlefield for bacteria. Someone tosses a bar of birch soap your way. You catch it, nod in thanks, and sniff it strong and smoky with a hint of whatever your cousin added last month when she made it. Could be wild garlic. Could be goat. You're not sure. You use it anyway. The bath is getting louder now. Jokes, laughter, splashing. One man accidentally drops the soap and nearly capsizes the tub trying to retrieve it. It's not worth it. Someone yells, "Let it go to the gods." The soap floats. The man sinks. You laugh. So does he. A quiet moment returns and you notice something small, but important. No one here rushes. There's no urgency. No one counting minutes. In this bath time stretches. You exist outside the world for a while. Just floating, steaming, breathing. You take a long look at your fingers, wrinkled, clean, human. These are the same fingers that will grip a sword tomorrow. The same fingers that earlier today held a goose feather and scraped soot from your molars. The same fingers that now trail calmly through scented bathwater, as if war doesn't exist. You close your eyes again and listen. Someone's telling a story about their grandfather, who allegedly bathed so well that no fleas dared touch him. Another argues that's nonsense. Fleas fear no man. Especially not ones who sleep with goats. Somewhere in the middle of this steaming chaos and camaraderie, you realize something profound. Cleanliness for Vikings isn't a bonus. It's a baseline. A clean body is not a symbol of softness. It's one of readiness, of respect. You wash because you're about to get dirty, and you don't want yesterday's dirt clinging to tomorrow's fight. You climb out of the tub, steaming in the cool air, and someone hands you a woolen wrap. It's not dry exactly, but it's warm. You wrap it around yourself and stand for a moment watching the steam rise off your skin, like morning fog over the fjord. Another laugardagger completed. You feel refreshed, reset, rehumanized. You leave the bathhouse with the serenity of a man who steamed the sin out of his armpits. Your skin is flushed, your pores are open, and your hair is momentarily cooperating. But just as you begin to revel in the moment, something scratches at your ankle. You look down. It's a flea. Of course. Because no matter how many times you bathe boil or beg the gods for mercy, you live in an age where fleas and lice are less pests and more permanent house guests. You sigh, crouch, and flick it off with the kind of calm that only comes from knowing it'll be back by sundown. It's time for the next part of your hygiene ritual, fumigation. You head to the outer yard where garments hang from rough-spun ropes between two poles. A smoky fire burns below them, and fragrant herbs are piled nearby. Lavender, wormwood, sage, mugwort. You grab a bundle, toss it onto the fire, and watch as the air fills with sweet, bitter smoke. This isn't incense. It's war. Your wool tunic dangles above the flames, absorbing the smoke like an old warrior absorbing scars. The smoke drives out pests, fleas, lice mites. At least in theory. In practice, it mostly makes you smell like a sentient smoked ham. But that's better than smelling like week old fish and scratching your arms like a man cursed by Loki himself. You shuffle through your gear bag. Your second tunic, scratched with your initials and faintly mended in the armpits, needs a turn too. You add it to the line and step back. Someone behind you sneezes dramatically. "That's not lavender," he says, eyeing your herb pile suspiciously. "That's goat droppings." You shrug. Still burns. The truth is, fumigation is your clan's version of dry cleaning. Not everyone has the time or access to soap and water to wash their clothing fully each week, so smoking them is the next best thing. It kills bugs, neutralizes odors, and gives your garments that telltale Viking scent, piney peppery and slightly flammable. You sit beside the fire and rub a salve on your wrists and ankles. It's made from bear fat and crushed rosemary. It smells like something between a healing balm and an overconfident salad dressing. But it works, most of the time. Historians still argue whether these fumigation rituals were purely practical, or if there was a spiritual element. Was the smoke meant to cleanse more than just the body? Maybe to send away ill luck or whisper prayers to the gods in herbal spirals. You watch the smoke twist upward, curling around the tunics like ghostly fingers. It feels intentional. You'd believe it's doing more than killing fleas. You'd believe anything right now if it meant fewer bites. A group nearby are brushing down their cloaks. They use wooden paddles wrapped in wool to beat the dust out occasionally, whacking each other under the guise of accidental misfires. You take a turn and give your cloak a few solid whaps. Dust, ash, and possibly a few long-deceased insects billow out in a cloud. You cough dramatically, then immediately regret it. Viking textiles don't go down easy. You glance down at your underlayers, the linen shirt and breeches worn closest to the skin. These are the true heroes of your wardrobe. Light, breathable, and a solid barrier between your noble self and the scratchy wool monsters that make up the rest of your clothing. Someone once said, if you kept your linens clean, the rest would follow. You've lived by that rule since the day you had to borrow your cousin's spare tunic and discovered a family of lice squatting in the neckline. You step over to a low bench where a woman, one of the village's most feared seamstresses, is sewing new hems into a pair of breeches. "You tear another?" she asks without looking up. "No, you lie. Just inspecting." She doesn't believe you, but she threads her needle anyway and mutters about warriors who treat linen like armor. She's not wrong. You do. You gather your smoked tunic from the line and give it a quick sniff. Better. Still a bit of wet dog on a mountain vibe, but that's practically perfume by Viking standards. You pull it on, feeling the warmth of the smoke against your skin. It hugs you like a campfire memory. You add your cloak tie, your belt, and adjust your pouch. Then comes the fun part, checking for stowaways. You run your hands through your hair, along your shoulders, inside your sleeves. You find nothing yet, but you know better. This is just a temporary truce. By next week, you'll be scratching again, muttering curses and fumigating like your life depends on it. Which honestly, it kind of does. You finish with a spritz of your finest cologne, a dab of pine resin, mixed with a few drops of imported rose oil. You definitely didn't steal from a Frankish monastery. It's pungent. It's bold. It says, "I have bathed this decade." Nearby, the chieftain passes, gives you a sniff, and raises an eyebrow. "Rose," he asks. You pause. Strategic intimidation. He nods. "Carry on." And you do. Clean temporarily. Smelling like a forest picnic, definitely. Ready for fleas, never. But that's Viking life. And tonight, when you lay down beside your weapons, you'll scratch a little sigh a lot and thank the gods you remembered to smoke your socks. The sky has shifted again, lighter now, but still with that silvery northern glow that never quite feels like full daylight. You sling your smoked tunic over one shoulder and start making your way back towards your hut, where one of the final and most overlooked rituals of Viking hygiene awaits the sacred layering of clothing. You duck inside the dim light, greeting you like an old friend. Your underlayer, the linen shirt you scrubbed within an inch of its life last week, is laid out on a bench. It's wrinkled, slightly yellowed, but oh, it smells like soap, wood smoke, and victory. You step out of your wrap and slip into it. Linen, dear listener, is your hidden luxury. Scratchy wool might be what people see, but linen is what your skin feels. And after a week of friction sweat and goat encounters, your skin deserves mercy. This shirt, homespun and stitched by your aunt, who swears she was too drunk to thread it straight, is the unsung hero of your wardrobe. You stretch your arms inside the sleeves and relish that moment, cool, crisp, and blissfully itch-free. Linen is breathable, flexible, and blessedly smooth, making it the perfect barrier between you and the wool tunic, waiting to take over the rest of the day. And that tunic, let's talk about it. It's been hanging near the door, freshly fumigated, air-dried over juniper smoke, and now imbued with a fragrance that is somewhere between festive and funeral pyre. You pull it on over your head and feel its weight settle over your shoulders like armor. Soft, scratchy armor made of sheep. You adjust the collar and look down. A faint patch near the hem catches your eye, the one your sister embroidered in the shape of a raven. It's tiny, crooked, and definitely not intimidating, but it reminds you of home. You keep it. Historians still argue whether Vikings cared deeply about fashion, or were simply practical with flair. But between the brightly dyed tunics, intricate trims, and decorative pins, there's a good chance your average raider knew exactly what they were doing. Wool garments were often dyed using natural pigments woad for blue madder, root for red onion skins for gold. The result: a society that could sail into battle looking like they'd just stepped off the runway at Fjord Fashion Week. You grab your breeches, neck simple wool, reinforced at the knees with leather patches. You step into them carefully, trying not to trip on the uneven floorboards. They're warm, rugged, and tight in all the wrong places. But they're yours. And underneath, you're still rocking your linen underbreeches. Another hidden layer. Another defense against the great Viking itch. Next comes the belt, wide and made of rough leather, dyed dark with ash and sweat. You cinch it tight around your waist, feeling the satisfying tug of everything coming together. Hanging from the belt are the tools of everyday Viking life. Your pouch of grooming tools, a small eating knife, a whetstone, and let's be honest, the most important item of all, your wooden comb, carved with runes. You're not even ashamed. The room is quiet. You pause to run a hand over your sleeve, brushing off invisible lint. The wool doesn't itch quite as much with linen underneath. You feel layered, protected, buffered from the coarseness of the world. Outside, you can hear others dressing too. Someone curses at a twisted sleeve. Another sings softly to himself as he buttons his cloak. The rustle of wool, the clink of bronze brooches, the occasional thud of someone falling over trying to pull on socks. This is the soundtrack of preparation. You glance toward your cloak, thick charcoal-colored, fastened with a silver brooch shaped like a serpent. It's too warm to wear just yet, but you fold it neatly over your arm. That brooch, a gift from a raid in the east, or a trade, or your uncle might have won it in a drinking contest. The story changes depending on how much ale is involved. In Viking culture, Layers weren't just about warmth, they were about presentation. A man could show status through the weight of his cloak, the brightness of his tunic, or the neatness of his hems. Clean clothing meant wealth. Dyes meant access. And a visible lack of fleas, that friend, was true social power. You lace up your shoes, soft leather turn shoes, more decorative than durable. If you step in cow dung again, you'll never forgive yourself. But for now, they're dry, snug, and slightly fragrant from last week's mint fumigation experiment. You'll call it a success. With everything in place, you stand tall. You don't just look like a Viking, you look like a Viking who knows what he's doing. You're clean layered and slightly perfumed. You're a walking paradox, battle-hardened and bath-fresh. And there, in the corner of the room, a small wooden mirror, more polished bronze than glass. You pick it up, tilt it toward your face, and smirk. You look better than half the warriors in the village. And that's saying something, considering one of them has a braid so perfect, it's probably outlawed in 3 counties. You set the mirror down and step outside. The breeze catches your cloak, lifting the hem just enough to make you look dramatic totally by accident. Someone sees you and raises an eyebrow. Trying out for a saga, they joke. You smile. Maybe just the hygiene chapter. The village hums with quiet motion as preparations continue. You make your way toward the gathering circle, freshly layered, and looking not to be dramatic, but like a man who could raid and moisturize at the same time. As you pass the animal pens and trading stalls, your fingers instinctively reach for your beard. Ah, yes. The beard. It's not just facial hair. It's a declaration. A statement. A slightly itchy monument to your masculinity status. And most importantly, your grooming discipline. And this morning it's time to give it the full treatment. You sit down near the central fire pit and pull out your beard care pouch bone comb, beeswax balm, and a tiny pod of perfumed oil infused with wild thyme and something that might be cinnamon or just an overly enthusiastic birch leaf. It's hard to tell, but the scent is pleasant, warm, almost festive. With a grunt, you begin combing your beard, tugging gently through the tangles and smoothing out the chaos. Each stroke is deliberate, and as you do it, others around you follow suit. Beards are being untangled left and right. A symphony of scraping combs fills the air. One warrior even has his beard braided by his sister, who slaps his hand every time he reaches up to check the symmetry. You chuckle. There's an art to Viking beard care, and you're committed to it. Once the tangles are gone, you take a dab of the wax and work it into the base of the beard, massaging it in with strong fingers. It softens the wiry strands, tames the volume, and gives you that signature, yes, I bathe weekly glow. The wax also holds the beard in place, useful when charging into battle or trying to eat soup without wearing it. Now comes the oil. You warm a few drops between your palms and smooth it over your beard like a finishing touch. The scent rises earthy and slightly spicy. It smells like someone who knows what birch tar is and how to wield a sword. Cinnamon, again, a voice teases. You glance up. It's Rolf, his own beard, braided into a neat spiral that looks like it was done by a particularly ambitious squirrel. You trying to smell like dessert before a raid? You shrug. Better than smelling like despair. He snorts. Fair point. Beards for Vikings weren't just decorative. They were status symbols. A well-maintained beard showed control care and charisma. Warriors with tidy beards were often considered more respectable, more mature. It's no coincidence that many Viking leaders were described as having imposing or well-groomed beards in the sagas. What the bards didn't write is how much time those leaders probably spent oiling their chins. Historians still argue whether beard grooming was personal vanity, religious devotion, or a cultural requirement. Perhaps it was all 3. Some sources suggest that beard braiding even followed specific styles, based on region or clan. Part fashion, part identity. You reach for the final step, the decorative clasp. It's a small ring made of bronze carved with runes and polished to a dull shine. You thread it onto the end of your beard and tighten it with practiced fingers. It feels good, weighted, dignified, slightly dangerous. Nearby, two younger warriors attempt their first beard clasps. One drops his into the fire. The other ends up tying his beard into a knot that somehow also secures his cloak. It's a work in progress, he mutters, trying to disentangle himself while maintaining some shred of dignity. You offer help, but he waves you off. It's fine. It's fashionable. You glance around at the other men, some bearded like storm clouds, others still waiting for the blessing of puberty to fully descend. A few go clean-shaven, either by choice or by follicular betrayal. But even they groom carefully, compensating with styled hair earrings or particularly well-tied cloaks. You remember one elder saying, if your beard looks like a haystack, no one will fear your axe. Harsh but accurate. A breeze ruffles your tunic and you catch a whiff of your own scented beard. It smells like someone who could lead a raid and knit socks if necessary. Balanced. Complex. You rise satisfied. You're no longer just clean, you're composed. And your beard. It's the final signature on your presentation scroll. Someone whistles from the edge of the clearing, looking sharp cinnamon breath. You don't respond. You just walk past them slowly, dramatically, letting your beard catch the light. And maybe, just maybe, you imagine that it gleams. Your beard is now nothing short of glorious. And frankly, if someone composed a saga right now, you'd demand a full stanza dedicated to its shimmer. But as you stride down the path toward the shore, the focus shifts. There's another layer to this Viking ritual. Something far older, more primal, and still laced in scholarly mystery. The curious case of Viking body markings. You step into the communal tent where warriors gather before battle. Some are sharpening blades, others adjusting leather straps or sipping warm mead. In the corner sits Torvi, the clan's quiet tattooist. Her arms are a patchwork of inked swirls and geometric shapes, and in front of her lies a modest selection of pigment bowls, each one dark as midnight. You nod to her and sit. She doesn't ask. She knows what you want. She dips a slender bone needle into a mixture of ash charcoal and fermented soot, an ancient blend thought to contain the strength of the earth and the whispers of the gods. The scent is smoky, almost metallic. Not unpleasant. Not comforting. Just serious. She presses the point to your shoulder. A sharp sting. You don't flinch. The pattern she inks is simple. A ringed spiral representing protection and continuity. You've had a similar one before, faded now with age and salt. This new one is cleaner, bolder. The process is slow, deliberate, and silent, except for the occasional grunt from a warrior having something drawn a bit too close to his ribs. You sit still, absorbing the moment. Now, let's address the question that keeps historians up at night. Were Vikings really tattooed head to toe, like runic rock stars? Accounts vary. The most frequently cited comes from a 10th century Arab diplomat, Ahmad ibn Fadlan, who wrote that the Rus, a people possibly of Norse origin, were covered in dark green patterns from neck to fingertips. Some scholars believe this was poetic exaggeration. Others think it was literal. Historians still argue whether these markings were decorative, spiritual, or identifiers in battle. What's certain is this Norse culture had an intimate relationship with symbolism, and whether carved in stone or skin, those symbols carried weight. Torvi finishes and wipes your shoulder clean with a damp cloth. The sting remains, but so does the power. You don't feel transformed. You feel revealed. Like something inside you just stepped into the light. Next comes the blue. You reach for a bowl of woad paste, thick indigo and slightly gritty. It stains your fingers instantly. Carefully, you smear it along your cheekbones, down the bridge of your nose, and across your collarbone. The sensation is cooling, grounding, like pulling shadows across your skin. A warrior beside you paints twin lines beneath his eyes. Another draws spirals across his arms. The shapes vary, some abstract, some resembling runes, some pure chaos. But the effect is universal. This isn't just art. It's armor. Woad derived from the Asatis tinctoria plant contains compounds that tint the skin blue when oxidized. Whether it actually served as protection against infection, sunburn, or spirits is debatable. What isn't debatable? You look absolutely terrifying in the best way. One of the elders passes by, chuckling. We used to say the blue kept the blade from cutting too deep. He taps your forehead lightly, or at least kept your enemy distracted. You thank him, then glance at your reflection in a bronze bowl. The markings look ancient, even though they were applied 10 minutes ago. They lend a silence to your face, a kind of stillness that says this man is clean, but also prepared to throw you into a river. There's something oddly satisfying about layering ritual like this. Cleaning the skin, oiling the beard, marking the flesh. Each step is both intimate and performative. You're not just preparing for battle, you're shaping the version of yourself that will face it. The final touch. You reach for a handful of fine sand and rub it gently across the woad once it dries. It sets the color and dulls the shine, leaving your markings matte and mysterious. No one wants their forehead glowing like a signal fired during combat. Around you, others are finishing up. The tent smells of ash oil and bitter herbs. It feels like the dressing room of a storm, quiet, charged, sacred. And just when you think you're ready, Torvi hands you a small clay pot. Sun salve, she says. For the blue. You raise an eyebrow. She nods. You want it to last, don't you? Of course you do. You dab the salve gently over the markings. It's made from beeswax fish oil and crushed calendula. It smells faintly like the sea at low tide, but it works. The woad stays put. Your skin stays protected, and you officially cross the line between everyday Viking and mythic nightmare. Outside the longship waits Dragonhead gleaming. You rise tattoo, burning slightly woad cool on your cheeks, and salve softening the edge. You are ready, and you look absolutely unapproachable. The shore greets you with the scent of seaweed and wet wood, a reminder that your morning rituals are almost over. But there's one more hurdle before you're officially ready for departure, surviving the next few hours in a longship crammed with men who may or may not have followed the full hygiene protocol. You step onto the deck and immediately feel the flex of the timber beneath your boots. The longship is lean and deadly, its carved dragon prow glaring ahead as if it's already bored of your hesitation. Around you, warriors stow supplies, check ropes, and secure weapons. The mood is focused, but not tense. Yet, you take your place on one of the benches near the middle of the ship, your gear bag tucked underfoot. The oars lie ready, smooth, worn, and slightly sticky with last voyage's sweat. You grip one and suppress a shudder. There's no denying it, rowing for hours with 40 other men is the fastest way to turn a clean Viking into a regrettable one. This is where the real test of hygiene begins. You shift on the bench and glance at the warrior beside you, Eagle. He's older, slightly hunched, and smells like pickled herring and ambition. He offers a crooked smile. Hope you brought mint, he says. You didn't. As the ship begins to push off from the shore, the crew settles into rhythm. Oars dip and rise. Water slaps the hull. A gull shrieks overhead, possibly in protest. Within moments, the scent of pine and smoke is replaced by the unmistakable aroma of damp wool, wet leather, and masculine optimism. Let's not sugarcoat it. Viking longships were marvels of engineering, but they did not come with ventilation. 40 men rowing in unison, each exhaling sweating, sometimes sneezing. You get the idea. Within the first half hour, the scent evolves from mildly forested to aggressively fermented. You pull your cloak tighter and subtly press a scented pouch to your nose. It's not fancy, just dried rosemary and mint tied with linen, but it does the trick. For a while. Don't bother someone grunts behind you. Nothing masks Torsten's feet. You glance back. Torsten, to his credit, looks ashamed. I bathed, he protests. Your boots didn't come's the reply. You chuckle and lean into the rhythm of the oar. The ship creaks, groans, and glides forward. Historians still argue how Vikings maintained their hygiene during long voyages. There's little direct evidence of bathing at sea, but we know they brought grooming kits, combs, razors, even soap. Some longships carried barrels of fresh water for rinsing, and it's likely that quick washes happened whenever the ship docked near a clean stream. But in between landfalls, things got fragrant. You notice a clever setup near the front of the boat. Someone has hung strips of wool infused with lavender and wormwood from the canopy poles. As the boat sways, the strips sway too, releasing a faint herbal breeze. It's not exactly perfume, but it helps. A warrior nearby pulls out a lump of beeswax and rubs it under his arms. Another is chewing on licorice root, not for fun, but to freshen his breath. He hands you a piece. It tastes like old bark and sadness, but it's better than nothing. You adjust your position, trying to avoid the backdraft of the man rowing in front of you. He's enthusiastic. Very enthusiastic. You mentally rank him high-effort medium odor, which puts him above average. Soon enough, someone starts humming. A soft, low tune. Others join in. It becomes a rowing chant. Simple, repetitive, oddly soothing. The rhythm of the oars aligns with the beat. The sea slaps in time, and for a moment the smell fades into the background, replaced by unity breath motion. You close your eyes, breathing through your mouth strategically, and picture the raiding village ahead. Clean clothes, clean beard. Woad dried like armor on your face. But none of that means anything if you arrive smelling like a fish's bad dream. So you make choices. You adjust your wool tunic to vent the sweat. You shift your foot slightly to give the air some room to circulate. You remind yourself that a quick wipe with a cloth and a handful of river water will happen later, even if it means braving the cold again. You reach into your bag and pull out your emergency freshness pebble, a smooth stone rubbed with scented oil. You keep it near your neck. It does nothing practical, but the placebo effect is a powerful thing. And then, like a reward from Odin himself, it begins to rain. Just a drizzle. Cool, steady, refreshing. You tilt your head back, letting it cleanse your forehead, your cheeks, your beard. The water trickles down into your collar, momentarily masking the musk of manhood that clings to the ship. A cheer goes up. Several men strip off their cloaks and let the rain soak them. It's the best wash anyone's had in days. Some even raise their arms, inviting the sky to do what soap no longer can. You take a long breath and smile. Because yes, you're rowing toward uncertainty. And yes, your neighbor smells like someone tried to ferment onions in a boot. But for now, you are clean enough, wet enough, and just lucky enough to catch a little sky bath before the next round of chaos. By the time the rain stops and the first outline of land creeps into view, your arms ache from rowing. Your shoulders are sore and your spine feels like it was gently tapped by Thor's hammer repeatedly. But your beard's still perfect, so not all is lost. The longship slows. The oars are lifted, dripping, and there's a moment of peace. You reach into your pouch and pull out a small cloth dabbing at your forehead, which is equal parts seawater sweat and rain. Not exactly glamorous, but passable. And as you lean back for a breather, your eye catches something oddly beautiful: clean fingernails. It's a detail easy to overlook, tucked beneath tunics and swords hidden behind beards and biceps. But among the quiet codes of Viking grooming, fingernails mattered a lot. You hold your hands out in the gray light, inspecting them like a master craftsman. Underneath the grime of rowing, the beds are neat. No black crescents, no jagged edges. You had the foresight this morning to trim and scrape, and now in this quiet lull, before landing, you appreciate the tiny triumph. A friend leans over, still fussing with your nails. You nod. Good, he says. A man with dirty nails can't write poetry or hold hands. This gets a laugh from the nearby rowers. One of them, young, barely past his first beard, blushes and hides his hands in his cloak. You reach for your knife and slide the blade gently under one thumb. It's more habit than need. You remember being told as a boy, don't let death catch you looking like a goat herder. Some took that to mean battle readiness. You took it to mean trim your nails. Fingernail care wasn't just vanity. In battle, long or broken nails could rip, splinter, or snag on armor. More than one warrior has been taken out of commission, not by a sword, but by an infected finger. You've seen it. It's not pretty. And among the more refined circles, yes, they existed. Even love letters weren't safe from scrutiny. You remember an elder woman in your village who once said, if a man gives you a token with dirt under his nails, send it back with a flea. She was terrifying, and absolutely right. Historians still debate how much emphasis the Norse placed on fingernail hygiene. But grooming kits consistently include tiny picks and pointed tools that strongly resemble nail cleaners. It's not hard evidence, but it's persuasive, especially when found in graves alongside combs, razors, and tweezers. You don't pack tweezers unless you plan to use them. No one dies thinking, I wish I'd been itchier. You slide the knife under each nail, catching anything the rowing didn't already clear. The ship rocks gently as it coasts toward shore, and you feel the shift in the crew. Less banter, more focus. You smell the difference too. The wet green of land, the faint sweetness of grass. It's a welcome change from the salted man musk you've endured for hours. Beside you, one of the older warriors is rubbing beeswax on his cuticles. You raise an eyebrow. He grunts. If my fingers are going to pry open a gate, they better not split halfway through. Fair point. You finish your cleaning, then rub a drop of leftover beard oil into your knuckles. It softens the skin and makes you feel strangely invincible. It's the little things. A call comes from the bow landfall in 15. Everyone rises, stretching, shifting gear. But you stay seated for one more minute, committing to the final touch. From your pouch, you retrieve a thin sliver of polished bone. It's curved, worn smooth from years of use, and just right for filing rough edges. You scrape gently along your thumbnail, removing an invisible imperfection that no one but you would notice. That's the point. You were raised to believe that a warrior must be balanced. Fierce in battle, but calm in preparation. Brutal, but never careless. If you can't control your fingernails, how will you control a blade? The younger warrior is watching you. Now, his hands half clean, his nails uneven. You toss him your bone scraper. You'll thank me later. He catches it unsure, then nods. I want to look composed. You will, you reply. If we survive. He chuckles nervously. You wink. It's odd, isn't it? That in a life of blood, wind, and fire, something so small as a fingernail can anchor you to a sense of self. But that's the beauty of ritual, of hygiene, of being more than just a warrior, of being human. The ship slows again. You can hear waves now softer licking the shore. Someone calls for silence. A raven circles overhead. You glance down at your hands. Clean, steady, ready. The sword may be next. But for now, you're still the man with the cleanest hands on the ship. And that somehow feels like armor. The keel scrapes softly against the gravel shore. And just like that, you're no longer a drifting bundle of muscle and beard. You're a Viking stepping onto new soil. The world feels bigger, now heavier, like it's holding its breath just for you. But you're busy straightening your tunic. As your boots sink slightly into the damp earth, you catch your reflection in a pool of rainwater. Blue markings. Still sharp beard. Still pristine nails. Still, though impressively clean. You allow yourself a moment of smugness before falling in line behind the others. Because now comes the part where your appearance becomes more than self-care. It becomes strategy. You're not raiding yet. First there's the show, the approach. And in the Viking world, presentation is part of the plan. You walk beside the others as they adjust their cloaks, reposition their brooches, and in some cases, sneakily re-braid a section of unruly hair. These are warriors. Yes, but they're also performers. And this is their stage. Fashion in your world is not vanity. It's reputation. Tunic quality. Cloak drape. How clean your armbands are, these aren't random. They communicate wealth, strength, and control. Especially control. Because nothing terrifies a village more than invaders who look like they just walked out of a royal banquet instead of a swamp. Your own outfit isn't extravagant, but it's intentional. Your tunic is trimmed with a strip of dyed linen, a soft ochre yellow that says, "My cousin knows how to boil plants for pigment." Your cloak fastens with a bronze brooch shaped like a wolf's head, a subtle nod to your clan symbol. Your boots, while scuffed from the ship, still carry the scent of mint from your earlier overzealous fumigation. Someone to your left mutters, "Don't trip on your own hem this time." You reply, "Only if you keep your belt from falling off mid-charge." Fashion-friendly warfare. Welcome to the Viking runway. You make your way toward the outskirts of the village, a quiet settlement nestled between trees and sea. It's not your first time seeing a target like this, but today feels different. Cleaner, sharper, sharpened by the rituals that led you here. As your group fans out, you take stock. Some warriors wear brightly dyed tunics, rich reds and blues imported through trade or looted from previous encounters. Others opt for more muted tones, favoring stealth over spectacle. A few even wear jewelry, arm rings, necklaces, beads woven into braids. You've got a few beads too. Not flashy, but distinct 2 glass 1 amber tied near the end of your braid. One was traded from a merchant in Hedeby. The other, taken from a man who never got a chance to admire your hygiene routine. Historians still debate how much Vikings relied on their clothing to intimidate versus impress. Some argue it was all about function, warmth, protection, utility. But then why the embroidery? Why the bright dyes? Why go to war wearing trousers with decorative cross-stitching? Because fashion is power. A clean, confident warrior in a well-kept tunic carries a different energy. He doesn't look desperate. He looks dangerous. You glance at the younger warriors, some nervously tugging at their sleeves, others checking to make sure their cloaks billow correctly when they walk. You've been there. You understand. You make sure yours does too. A few villagers emerge from the woods ahead, likely unaware of the full extent of your visit. You stay still, letting the group's silence speak. And in that silence, your cleanliness becomes another weapon. You are composed, unrushed, like you had time to steam your beard before setting foot on their land. And maybe you did. One of your companions whispers. You think they're impressed. You whisper back. Wait until they see the fingernails. You can feel the nervous energy, the slight twitch in the air, like a deer catching wind of something sharp in the forest. But you remain still grounded in your body, in your routine. That's the secret. The war begins long before the swords clash. It starts here, in the way you carry yourself and how you've prepared. And in a world that respects strength, what's stronger than showing up looking like you've already won? A signal passes down the line. Not a word, just a nod. And just like that, the show is over. You move forward, not fast, not slow, but with the steady pace of someone who's bathed, dressed, oiled, and mentally reviewed his personal grooming checklist. You're not just fighting for plunder. You're fighting for the right to be remembered as the cleanest barbarian at the banquet. The clash doesn't come immediately. They're shouting, yes, running, doors slamming. The unmistakable ripple of panic through a village caught off guard. But for you, oddly, it's still quiet. You move with purpose, but also with composure. Your tunic doesn't billow wildly. Your boots land softly on the earth. Your breathing is steady, because this too is part of the ritual. The outer chaos may rise like a tide, but you remain centered, grounded, scrubbed. You slip into the manor courtyard as others surge ahead. The scent here is different. Wood smoke, mead, and animal hides, but under it all, you still catch that faint trace of rosemary and birch soap from earlier. It clings to you like a second skin. A reminder. A woman darts past clutching a child. You don't raise your blade. This isn't that moment. You're not here for slaughter. You're here for spoils, for statement, and somewhere beneath all the heat and movement for dignity. You duck into a side hall where the furnishings are modest but neat. A polished goblet, a carved stool, a basin of water, still warm. Someone here believes in bathing too. You nod in silent approval. You catch your reflection again, this time in the goblet's curved metal. The blue markings on your face have held. Your beard still frames your chin like a declaration. There's dirt on your collar now, sure, but underneath the linen still holds its shape. Still clean. Still you. And then suddenly you're back outside. A scuffle breaks out near the well. Two warriors argue loudly over a bundle of cloth and coins. That's mine, one hisses. I saw it first. You sigh. You walk over, put a hand on each of their shoulders, and quietly say, You both smell terrible. Sort it out. They blink, and to your surprise, they do. Hygiene as mediation. You make a mental note of that. You take the opportunity to sit for a moment on a low stone wall. Your heart is still beating hard, but the adrenaline is fading. You reach for your water pouch, take a long sip, then pour a bit onto your hands. Not enough to wash, just enough to reconnect, to rinse away a layer, to remind yourself of your morning. You remember the warmth of the bathhouse steam, the feel of charcoal paste on your gums, the awkward but necessary fumigation of your cloak. You remember the soft scrape of the bone tool under your fingernails, and how the beard oil warmed in your palms before it sank into your skin. The ritual wasn't wasted. It never is. Historians still argue whether Vikings washed before battle out of superstition or strategy. Was it to please the gods to present themselves clean before death? Or just to maintain morale in a job that involves, well, a lot of mud and blood? You stand again just as the chieftain emerges from the main hall. His eyes sweep the group. He gives a short nod. It's done. The village is taken. The spoils gathered. The message sent. And here you are, uninjured, unbloodied, with your dignity intact and your beard still tidy. You make your way toward the ship slowly. There's no rush now, just the careful accounting of what was gained, what was lost, and how soon you'll need another fumigation. Others talk around you loudly, laughing, boasting. You let their voices roll over you like water over stone, because inside you're already returning, already beginning to wind the ritual backward. Soon you'll strip away the outer layers again. Scrub the sea from your skin. Re-oil, rebraid, and relight the steam fire, because no matter how far you sail or what you take, you always return to the self. And the self must be clean. The longship groans under the weight of loot and laughter as it pushes away from the shoreline. The village behind you grows smaller, with each oar stroke its rooftops now just smudges against the tree line. You sit near the stern, muscles heavy, eyes half closed, mind already beginning the slow unraveling from warrior to, well, human again. The crew settles into its familiar rhythm. Some hum, some sleep sitting upright. Others inspect their trophies, holding up small brooches or carved spoons like they're priceless relics, which, to be fair, in the moment they are. You lean against a stack of bundled cloaks and stretch your legs. Your boots are muddy. Your tunic, while still mostly intact, bears a suspicious stain near the hem. Possibly wine, possibly someone else's stew. Your hands are nicked, but your beard, still flawless. Small wins. You pull off your cloak and shake it out, releasing a cloud of dust and dried leaves. It still smells like juniper smoke and rosemary. Somehow that scent grounds you, reminds you of steam and birch, and the quiet hands that scrubbed a lifetime of sweat from your skin just yesterday. A quiet crewmate, Skjold, offers you a damp cloth and nods toward your forehead. You wipe away a smear of blue. The woad's still mostly intact, but it's starting to fade at the edges. That's all right. You didn't mark yourself to look eternal. You did it to be present. Skjold raises an eyebrow. Worth the prep. You nod. Every second. Because you felt different walking into that village. Not reckless. Not wild. Composed. Unshakable. When the chaos rose up around you, you were already centered, anchored by the rituals that started before the ship even left shore. You look down at your hands again, dirtier now, nails chipped, a small bruise blooming at the base of your palm. But beneath all that, there's still care, still intention. A gust of sea wind lifts your hair slightly, and you catch the scent again. Something between cedar and old mead. You sigh, content. The chieftain passes, glancing at the crew. He looks at you and gives a small, almost imperceptible nod. Not approval. Recognition. That's all you need. One of the younger warriors stumbles over and flops down beside you, breathless. I saw you back there, he says, grinning. Didn't look flustered at all. Like you were out for a walk. You smile faintly. Helps when you wash first. He laughs. Yeah, I was sweating like a goat in a forge. And I forgot to tie my beard. Nearly ate it twice. You hand him your water skin. He drinks, then wipes his mouth with his sleeve. You think they'll write songs about this? You shrug. Maybe. But if they do, I want mine to include the part where my beard didn't fray. He laughs again and leans back, closing his eyes. Sleep starts to ripple through the crew like a soft spell. One by one, heads droop. Breathing slows. Even the waves seem to quiet in respect. And now you too begin to soften. The tension in your shoulders ebbs. Your knees stop gripping the bench like you're bracing for a storm. You are safe for now. And more importantly, clean enough. Because here's the truth in a world as harsh as yours. Caring for yourself isn't weakness. It's armor. Quiet, invisible armor that tells the world I am still here. Still human. Still whole. You tuck your cloak behind your head. Close your eyes and let the sea carry you gently home. And now, as the ship rocks you into a light sleep, let your mind drift with it. Feel the soft rhythm of the oars, the hush of the sea, the weight of wool across your shoulders. Everything harsh is behind you now. The shouting, the motion, the fight. It all fades like mist under sunlight. Your hands, though calloused, have done their job. They combed and scrubbed, tied and trimmed. Your body, though weary, has held its dignity. Every layer of care you gave yourself today, every wash, every oil, every quiet grooming ritual has not been forgotten. It stays with you, like muscle memory, like breath. Imagine the steam again swirling in the bathhouse. The way it curled around your limbs and carried away the weight of the week. Imagine the scent of birch, faint and smoky, seeping into your skin like a lullaby. Imagine clean linen, soft against you, protecting you even now as you rest. Let the hum of the sea blend with your heartbeat. Let your thoughts grow slow, round, and distant. You've done enough today. You've prepared, performed, and protected your peace. Let sleep take its place now. Gently, quietly. Tomorrow may ask more of you, but tonight you are clean and you are safe.